Hello and welcome to the course. And the topic for this session is Innovative and Entrepreneurial Universities in Africa. The objectives for this session is to understand the role of the universities in development and the emergence of innovations connected to universities. To know about the state of art of universities in Africa, how well they perform in research, in education, nationally, locally, internationally, and to recognize the key challenges and opportunities of entrepreneurial universities in African context. And there's a way to study the previous slides and the book about this topic. The main points for this session is that in Africa there are thousands of universities, a few thousand. However, very few of them reach globally to the top 500 universities, and this actually challenges the African universities' ability to be globally relevant in STI-based innovations. Because if you are not in a global leading positions, it is very difficult to be globally relevant in STI-based innovations. The second point is that entrepreneurial universities, they emerge in Africa and they are involved in innovation businesses and other society relevant activities, including in national and regional innovation systems. So some universities become more entrepreneurial and they find their place in innovation systems. And the third point is that actually universities in Africa, they need to enhance their position in innovation systems, and universities have a good opportunity and a necessity to become platforms for locally relevant inclusive innovations. So universities can play an important role in this. So let's talk about background for a while. So universities in general, they have a key role in innovation systems and innovation processes, if you think about North America and Europe. But in African context, the African universities, they have been weaker in innovation-related activities. Therefore, they would need to be more actively engaged in local development processes with innovations that are locally relevant. Very few universities in Africa outperform in globally significant research, and very few universities are entrepreneurial in their innovation-related activities. So there is still a lot of work to do. Some African universities, they foster their entrepreneurial characters to create better employment opportunities for their students, to generate additional income for their budget, and to have more societal relevance. So there are different aspects why African universities foster their entrepreneurial characters. And there is also international development cooperation between the donors and African universities, and it is changing. It is changing from the traditional broader capacity building into more narrow and more specific topics that are related to technology, that are related to specific capacity building, and that are related to innovation generation. So why there will be a specific number of sessions to talk about the challenges and potentialities to become entrepreneurial in universities. So I mentioned only a few points here. So one challenge is the efficiency or the lack of efficiency in university management system. Another challenge is the weaker leadership capability. Then the third aspect is about pricing. What is the price of university services? Is it too low? Then it's about the way to manage the existing resources, and then how the different actors within university are committed to the collective organizational goals of the university. So there are several challenges how strategic planning for African universities is taking place. When we talk about universities in general, you find similarities and differences between Africa and the global north. Similar aspects are like everywhere. Younger people get in, they learn things, and then they move to the society with enhanced skills. So enhancing the population knowledge, especially undergraduate level, that's rather similar. And universities provide these trained and skilled people for public administration and businesses, and that's common with Africa and the global north. However, the differences starts to grow when we talk about the research performance and PhD training. That's very important in Europe, in North America, research performance, international research, and PhD production, whereas that is less evident in many African countries. So as a result, universities in Africa, they have weaker global relevance in scientific research and projects. They are less important comparatively in societally engaged research, though they are important, they are less important, and they are less important in business development, such as producing university startups and entrepreneurial activities. And universities in Africa usually have very little resource for systematic development, long-term strategies, and short-term implementation with proper resources. When we think about ranking of African universities in general, the global academic competitiveness of African universities is weak if we measure that with the global conventional international indicators. Africa has 54 countries, but in the top 12 universities in Africa, 9 are from South Africa, from one country only. 2 are from Egypt, and 1 is from Kenya. If you include a bit more universities, on the top 25 universities in Africa, they are from 7 countries, and in the top 100 universities, you find universities from 19 countries. However, you don't find in the top 100 universities from 36 countries. They are weaker in terms of international performance indicators on research and so on. However, if we look at the top 100 universities in the lower end, like from 80 to 90 to 90 to 100, and you put them into global comparison, they are only ranked between number 3,000 to 4,000 globally. So even if you are number 90 in Africa, globally, you might be number 3,500. So there is a big gap between universities in Africa and universities in Europe and North America, especially. However, despite these quantitative rankings, universities are locally relevant, and that's one of the key performance criteria that should be implied in Africa. And this is a map showing where are the top universities, which are the top universities. And as you see, South Africa is really strong there, and then becomes Egypt, and then other countries. So what have been then the changes in African universities? First of all, as we have talked, the population is growing very rapidly in Africa, so it increases the demand for places in universities. So the number of African universities is growing, as well the number of students. And the African universities are increasingly connected to global knowledge flows through the internet, through interaction, and so on. They are connected to national economic development by producing skilled labor and so on. And they are connected to innovation systems. So finding the place in the national innovation policies. Also, there are private universities. They have emerged in the education and research fields. Sometimes they aim to be the top end, the best performing universities. Sometimes they just, absorb the growth of students and provide just an ordinary, higher education. And in general, African universities increasingly also focus on research activities, postgraduate education, and internationalization of university in research and education. So what could be then the role of African universities in terms of innovations? So in terms of innovations, they seem to focus mostly on economic issues, and some people claim that this business orientation in higher education that has taken the priority over the traditional university role in emancipation of communities, emancipation of individuals. So business first and emancipation second. However, African universities, they could be very important in the democratization of African societies, providing better social equality and opportunities, promoting open innovation systems and platforms for continuous societal transformation and search for novelty. So students socialize into society through university. They push the democratization principles forwards and practices, and they can critically evaluate development. And as we remember in the Global Democracy Index, many African countries were in the bottom of the democracy index list, in the bottom 20, 30 societies. And indigenous knowledge, that is a very good potential in Africa. It is not yet very common in African universities. However, it could provide a competitive advantage for innovation in Africa and its universities compared with many economically more developed societies. And it could be also the way to engage more participatory and socially just societies by bringing indigenous knowledge and communities into development. Then about entrepreneurial universities. So as we mentioned, it is becoming more active in Africa. So universities become more entrepreneurial. What is an entrepreneurial university? It's a university that contributes and provides leadership for creating entrepreneurial thinking, actions, institutions, and capital. So it's not just patents and technology transfer and so on, but it's about broader entrepreneurial mindset of people. They can enhance competitive economic growth in a country, create wealth, both the university and society, and in general, entrepreneurial universities create a stronger impact within the region where they are and beyond it. And these people, they are the staff of the university, the administrators, the students, some existing firms and new ventures. So these are all belonging to the entrepreneurial universities and their activities. And innovations are the key instruments to achieve these broader impacts. Sometimes it is also criticized that it results in commodification of knowledge. So what is economically nice and profitable, that's where the interests are. So whether, business orientation and critical mindsets come together. So these are issues to be thought and discussed. So the aim of the Entrepreneurial University is to stimulate economic development, enhance competitiveness, increase wealth creation, and produce innovations. So this is also traditional third mission of universities, besides education and besides research. So stimulate economy and, promote this entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurial actions, institutions, and capital. They can have formal roles, they can have informal roles, in doing, research between different actors in the region, or contract this research, or consulting, or informal roles as providing, advice and suggestions, and, being part of the network of one region. So still, it is rather rare to find African universities that have a strong mission, a vision, strategy, and practice for entrepreneurialism. Many universities aim to become entrepreneurial, but this strong mission, vision, strategy, and practice, that is not so evident. Sometimes, the focus is more on their students and their mindsets. Others want to create some economy, additional economy, and some want to get international aid or rise their relative ranking in continental rankings of African universities. Because of the particular context in Africa, the entrepreneurial orientation should also lead into reduction of poverty in their respective countries. And how to do it is in practice. There are many reforms, legislation changes done, and universities themselves, they build up technology transfer offices, incubators, centers, and seed funding and so on. So many instruments are built to support the change into more entrepreneurial activities. And of course, national government policies, they can help in that. Sometimes important is the culture of individual universities and how that focuses on entrepreneurialism. What kind of campus leadership exists? What is the quality in general? What kind of resources and dynamism are available in the local economy? And how, the universities are able to absorb and transfer and generate knowledge and technology. And sometimes these kind of international networks and frameworks, such as EASY OECD framework, to design entrepreneurial university, these are looked, and then the universities are designed accordingly. However, this is quite challenging because of the differences in context. And there are differences between the Anglophone African countries and the Francophone countries in their entrepreneurial missions. In Francophone countries, there are usually specific applied establishments inside the universities, whereas in Anglophone countries, it's more integrated within the university, whether more focused in a separate unit or more integrated. The differences exist. And of course, then another chance is to utilize the external aid and development aid to help universities to become entrepreneurial. So project development, program development with international financial donations. And this is quite common in many countries receiving international development aid from Europe or North America. One example is the collaboration between Sweden and Makerere University. For 2 decades, there were investments from Swedish Development Cooperation Agency to Makerere University to focus on health and epidemiology, some social science issues, agricultural issues within university, to create capacity building by enhancing the level of staff, more PhDs, more master students, and the results have been strong. And at the moment, Makerere University is firmly based on the top 20 universities in Africa. So, conclusions. In Africa, like in everywhere, universities are key actors in knowledge generation and innovation development. The majority of universities focus on higher education opportunities for large population, the population that is growing. A challenge is that there is rather low quality in general, and that is then difficult to become a world-class research-based university. Like I mentioned, many of the African universities are ranking globally in numbers 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Currently, policies and practices in Africa foresee universities as more involved in innovation, businesses, and other societally relevant activities, including taking an important part in national and regional innovation systems. And such universities, they want also to be more commercially successful through their innovations. International development aid projects, they have supported African universities and their capacity building. And nowadays, the recent focus is on technology development and innovation hubs. And several African countries and universities there, they could continue to progress quickly. And for that reason, some global north countries, they have withdrawn their long-term support for universities. So while African countries develop, then external aid becomes less. In 2020, African universities face challenges and opportunities in terms of being involved in inclusive innovation and development. Population growth is important factor here. And to break to a top 100 or top 500 globally is requiring huge investment in human skills, infrastructure, research, science, technology, innovation-based practices. So it's not viable for most African universities. A potential that is not much yet discussed and discovered is indigenous knowledge. So how link local communities, universities, and economic agents into innovations with competitive advantage. And anyway, African universities, they need to be actively involved in local development processes, and they need to be progressive in their attempts to solve poverty and inequalities that are still the main major development challenges across the African continent. And some references here. Thank you for your attention.